Hey everybody, Edo here, and I'm with my good friend Seth Johnson.
Hey everybody.
And sorry this video is coming a little late. It has been a busy year, but wanted to do some top games from 2019. Now, because it's been so busy, I decided just to do top 5 Kickstarters, top 5 games from this year. Reduce the list a little bit.
I actually went the opposite direction. I expanded mine a little bit. I've actually been backing Kickstarters since 2009, I realized recently, so 10 years. And I thought it'd be fun to look back and say, what were some of my favorite Kickstarters that I backed over the last 10 years? So rather than think about, like, what did I back recently that I'm still waiting for and trying to figure out what just arrived, I'm looking back across everything I ever got from Kickstarter. What are some of my favorites?
Look at that. Seth is always mixing it up without telling me. I love it. So that won't be necessarily captured in the splash, but that's cool. The other thing worth note, one, I'm not doing hot wings. I haven't done that in a while for another time. But two, these are exclusively games which I previewed or reviewed this year. So it's not necessarily for the Kickstarters, it's all this year, but it's not necessarily games that were released this year. Mm-hmm. Those were ones that I played this year for the first time, but nevertheless. So let's start with Kickstarter.
All right.
So for me, there were a lot of great Kickstarters this year, but in the 5th spot, I'm doing these in order.
All right.
I have 5 Minute Mystery, massive Kickstarter, hugely successful.
I'm really excited about this. I love their previous games.
Yeah, 5 Minute Dungeon, and just a really slick implementation of basically, they figured out how to do a hidden object game. Mm-hmm. That's a board game, not a digital game.
I haven't handled this yet. Oh,
yeah, it's a real thing. It's super cool, and the artwork's fantastic. And actually, I don't have every one of these. I don't have anymore, but I'll link the preview video before each one. But just really well executed, done. These guys are always a lot of fun. I like their attitude. I like their swagger.
Well, it's a fun new take on it, you know.
Yeah, and it's a nice physical.
It would have been far too easy to kind of just do something very, very similar to 5 Minute Dungeon, and this is not that, but it looks like it's going to be just as much fun.
Yeah, it's an icebreaker party game. There's not all that much there, but it's like, again, it's hidden object meets mastermind.
Right.
Meets timer.
Yeah.
So anyway, this fell in the category of, like, this thing was so cool. I was like, I'm just going to keep this. Because I don't have to return it.
Yeah, I watched your review, and I went back to it immediately. So
maybe I'll lend this to you, because you'll get a kick out of it.
I'll get my copy of it.
All right, so that was my 5th. Now, from whence are you starting your beginning of time?
I'm digging a little bit further back into 2014 and actually 2016 at the same time. I'm cheating even further and doing 2 at once.
Fantastic.
And that is 2. One is Pyramid Arcade.
Lots of fun in one box.
And one is Pairs, which is also a lot of fun in a very small box.
I see what you're doing.
Yeah, I love these both because they are a group of designers, the Looney Labs crew for Pyramid Arcade, and James Ernst and Paul Peterson for Pairs, taking one set of components and just doing a ton of different games. And it's a lot of fun. Pairs just does it with a special deck of cards called a triangular deck, where there's 1 card, 2 cards, 3 cards, all the way up to 10. And just the different variants of card games that he's built into that. It's a lot of fun.
This is the classic Pairs cards as opposed to the variant colored.
Yeah, that's right.
Colored,
the one I have here that I brought with me is the classic Pairs deck, which has fruit art on it. They've done a number of different ones working with a number of different artists. So if you like pirate art or fantasy art or dragon art, I think they've done different decks. And each of those actually come with their own unique game. But what's cool is, way back when, if you back the Kickstarter, you get a printed copy of The Pairs Companion, which collected together all the rules. But I believe you can now download this off the website for free. So if you get your hands on a Pairs deck, you can play all the games. When it comes to Pyramid Arcade, similarly huge number of games in the box. I think there's 24 games in here. The graphic design is absolutely beautiful. If you've played any of Looney Labs Ice House games, the pyramid games, things like that, you might be familiar with kind of the structure, a lot of them, but there's a huge variety of different games here. A lot of fun.
Awesome. All right, well, so moving along, we have number 4. So again, on these Kickstarters, generally speaking, sometimes I send them along to publishers. Sometimes I end up just tossing them, waiting for the Kickstarters to happen. But one of the games, the next one, number 4, is The Blessed Dark. This is a small game. This is like a tin-sized game of cards, and basically, what you're doing is it's a like dice rolling casting game. Do you remember? It has a really cool look to it, black, white, red sort of form, and what you're trying to do is essentially like work your curses up versus the other player,
Right.
and the cards you put down enable more dice manipulation, and it's like really simple. I think three dice for each person, or three. Just we take turns with them. Quick, fast dice rolling manipulation card game, and clean, solid. This one and even the next one to me are like the epitome of indie card game where you get like an interesting mechanic with a really sort of bold look, and it's fun. And so I really enjoyed it, and it really stood out against a myriad other games. So that was my next one.
My next one is actually a game that I backed on Kickstarter, and I remember reading the description saying, "Oh, it's a game where everyone takes on different roles." I say, "Oh, that's not such a big thing. You can play the knight. Okay, you can play the thief. Sure, you can play the dragon or the goblins, and if you want, one player can play the cave." I said, "Oh, the cave. That's kind of interesting." And it turns out that not only can you play different roles, everyone plays by different rules and has different goals. I am talking about Vast. And so I jumped at backing on Kickstarter, and then I actually ran into the Later Games crew at Gen Con when it was launching, and started playing a little bit of a demo in the booth just because I was excited, and loved enough that I actually bought a copy there, even though I had a copy coming a month later, and spent most of that Gen Con playing it over and over again. Which is kind of something you have to do. It is a game that has a learning curve.
Sure.
Whatever combination you pick or whatever number of players you have, it's a different game, which means you kind of have to learn it again. But I love it. I love digging into all those differences and having different experiences.
And we're talking about a Kickstarter dynasty here.
Yeah, they did an expansion to this, then they did the follow-up, Mysterious Manor, and that's led into Root, which is not a very different game, but also similarly asymmetric. And right now they have Oath going.
Oath is live. If you're, I think this will probably post on Friday or Saturday, maybe Saturday. But if you're on Kickstarter now, it's Oath and Dark Tower.
Yeah.
Basically, it's also Lift Off, Get Me Off This Planet. But that's a small compared to those big numbers. But cool. Well, so Vast, certainly high caliber Kickstarter title. So the next game we played. We've played a lot of these games together, but. The next one is Mephisto. Mephisto,
I just about brought that one.
is another small indie game with interesting mechanics and a nice, strong visual look. It's a little bit like a Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, Link to the Past aesthetic for the items and weapons, and basically you are playing versus another player. And you have a sort of a tableau in front of you, and everyone's building up rows behind it of items and different things you're going to use. You're casting it. It's not. I'm trying to think of it's a lot like you're casting spells like in Bless the Dark. It's a little, whereas Bless the Dark has the dice manipulation, this game is a little bit more of the planning, the rows. And
you're kind of fighting in different lanes.
The lane fighting.
You're manipulating your characters and the other characters and what's in the lanes.
And that one's a little bit more about collecting items and thinking about how you're going to, which strategy you're going to take and which monsters.
Yeah.
But highly recommend both of them. Yeah. Again, it's just, to me, that's still a place where you see indie title on Kickstarter. A couple people worked on it, and it did, relatively well. And excited to see those folks get their games live. So that was my number 3.
My number 3 is a game that I played first with you, I think, in your Kickstarter preview, and I have talked about it many times since, I think, here, and that is Rise of Tribes. If you're one of my friends, I've talked to you about it because I've pushed many of my friends into playing this over and over again. I've carried it in my suitcase to conventions. I love this game a lot. I think it's really simple and straightforward, and kind of the gameplay of taking your tribe and slowly building out your land and expanding your kind of little proto-civilization. But it's really evocative, and I think the core mechanic is absolutely brilliant, where you roll 2 dice and use those 2 dice to decide which of the 4 main actions you're going to take. But how you place those dice in those actions not only determines how well you get to take that action, but kind of influences what the next player might do. And so it is both simple and has just enough thinkiness in it to really make it a lot of fun.
This was also a fun one in that I saw it over the course of development and how it went from pen and paper to the actual Rise of the box version. I felt like it was fun to just see how they work through some of those mechanics, even the one you were talking about going from dice to symbols.
Yeah.
And then this really represented how Breaking Games and Peter could start leveling up their execution and do top flight modern board game.
And some of the great meeples they put in here, if you got the upgrade kit through Kickstarter, which I think you can get from them separately now.
Yeah, sure, I'm sure.
It's absolutely beautiful and a lot of fun.
Yeah, and then this turned into, what is it, like, the Dwellings of Everdale. I haven't played it. And that Kickstarter happened this year, but I did not have a preview copy. I
got to see that game played many times at our local Protospiel, and it is also a very cool, complex game that is... I can't wait to see what it looks like when it's all done. And I have to apologize a little bit because things have been so busy. My tolerance isn't the right word, but my ability to say yes to previewing gigantic games is just going down and down. It's like, oh, can I play it in 20, 30 minutes? If I read the rules, do I need 15 people in my house? But anyway, so next up, while those last ones, 5 Minute Mystery is a small company that does some hit games doing fabulously. The last two are indie. Then my number 2 spot goes to Kingdom Rush, Rift in Time. Fun, yeah. So
Lucky Duck Games is obviously a monster right now in terms of Kickstarter, and I've had Vince on Q&A a number of times. But being a fan of Kingdom Rush, a fan of Tower Defense, they just did a fantastic job with that game.
Yeah, and full disclosure, I did help on some of their games recently, just kind of behind the scenes with proofreading and things, but I don't.
Well, that's not why I liked it.
Well, yeah, no, I'm just saying I didn't. Just want full disclosure, but I didn't do anything except enjoy Kingdom Rush.
Yeah, I know
and it would have been really easy to do when you think of Kingdom Rush, the app game, you say, oh yeah, I see how that turns into a tabletop game, and they actually didn't do that for the game they're coming out with. I think they did something that's really clever. Yeah,
just really nice execution, given everything else they've done. I'm sure the 300 stretch goals, miniatures for miles. I just think there's a lot to like in that, and I've been really impressed. And Jesse Wright, one of the designers, and Helena Hope were local. They did a lot of playtesting of other things, and had the opportunity to show the game. But it lives up on its own.
Yeah.
What's your next thing?
My next one, actually, I forgot to bring it, which is a shame because I really wanted to show it off. And it's a game called Ilima.
Oh, sure.
Which was the band The Decemberists approached designer Keith Baker and said, we love playing games. We want to make a game. We want to make a game that's something new and interesting, but feels like it's been around forever. And so it's this really great card game, but it comes in a little box with a cloth board you unfold, and then the box goes in the middle of the cloth board, and you play the game as kind of a set collection game with beautiful little cards. And as it plays out in rounds, there are cards called luminaries, which are like tarot cards, which again have their own beautiful little art, and they're interacting with Ocus tokens, I think they're called, which are beautiful little metal tokens. They almost look like old Monopoly pieces, but crazy stuff. And it really does. It feels like something you pulled out of Grandma's closet, but in the best way. I can't wait to go over to Grandma's so we can play that old game again. Yeah.
So we did a preview for that as well, or review. One of the others. I think you brought your Kickstarter copy over.
Might have been, yeah.
And yeah, I think that game was a whole lot of fun. Interesting sort of mechanics that have that throwback feel.
Well, and I'm glad to mention it now. I want to get the word out there more, just so more people play it.
Well, interestingly enough, this evening, driving home, was an interview with Lin-Manuel Miranda on some BBC show, which is like the top 10 tracks you're going to bring to a desert island.
Oh, yeah, the desert island. Yeah, I've heard that radio program. Go ahead.
Well, and so his number 3 tracks was from the Decemberists. And I was like, why do I know those guys' names? It sounds so familiar. And full circle, there you have it. That's how I know, because otherwise
awesome.
I have no taste. All right, so Kickstarter, top game this year. This one's actually interesting because I gave it to a friend because I liked it a lot, but I thought she and her family would like it, and they've been playing it. was On the Rocks.
Yeah, I played that with you. That's great.
On the Rocks is this adult drinking themed game, but that's essentially like a gateway Mancala sort of point salad game.
It's a gateway theme to a much more interesting game.
Yeah. Well, basically, you are making drinks, and drinks are a set collection in front of you, and they have different elements, and those elements are marbles, and you're collecting marbles by picking up a dish, dropping them all, and taking the next one, and it just for other than, and they had one Kickstarter and then they had another, and I believe they funded on the second one. And other than like the whole production value, where I was like, I don't know if these guys are going to come out of this with their shirts still on,
because it looked great.
Great.
It really had the most on theme kind of design that I've seen since New York Slice.
Yeah. It was really, really excellent. It was just rules were clean. The play boards were menus. I mean, it was really well done. Again, I think the first Kickstarter, they didn't reach it, then they did it again. I think they did. But when I think back to Kickstarters this last year, that one stands out to me. Like, Kingdom Rush is fantastic, and it was a close second, but I could have predicted that one was that fantastic. This was a little bit more left field fantastic, and so I slid it up.
Yeah.
So what's next on your...
So my last one is actually a game that I first played with you. I think you may have done a review of it, and that is Avignon: A Clash of Popes.
That's yes and yes.
It's a button-shy game. They do fantastic little 18-card games. And again, I'm cheating because this is just kind of the opening for what I'm going to say, and that is how much I love Button Shy and everything they've been doing kind of with this form factor.
It looks like you have a Button Shy box.
So I have an entire box of their 18-card games. They are
is
almost
that your box or their box?
This is they actually ran a Kickstarter where you could just get the boxes, or maybe it was an add-on or something, because they have been doing Kickstarters almost constantly. I think they were doing them one at a time. I think now they're doing them in groups of 3, and constantly putting out new games, and they're not always the same game. I mean, they've done a brilliant array of games.
We played the car racing dexterity
racing games. They've done
4X.
An 18-card 4X game called Universal Rule. A fantastic one that just came out recently called Sprawlopolis, which is a little puzzle card-laying game. And then it's not just their Kickstarter. They also do a Patreon that runs what they call their Board Game of the Month Club.
Oh, this is like a full advertisement.
I know, sorry. I was really enthusiastic. I don't get any money from them, I promise. I give them a lot of money. Where what's great about that is that they actually send out expansions for the games. And some of those have become available via Kickstarter and things, but oftentimes via that you'll get little 1- and 2-card micro expansions that can get added into their various games. Along with there have been whole games they released just via that. It's another company that I wish was getting more attention because they're doing a lot of really cool stuff. Even if you don't like all their stuff, you're bound to like some of it and like some of it a lot.
It's a really nice execution of a consistent business model and theme that they've done Kickstarter, but then they have their Patreon and they have their subscription model. It's pretty neat. I definitely agree. Well, so that brings us to the end of the Kickstarter portion of this. I'm going to click just to make sure we don't lose anything.
All right, then I have to shift lifts here.
All right, now we are going to move to games released, or at least games reviewed this year. For my case, are you going through the decades? What are you doing?
I'm saying games I played for the first time in 2019, but most of them were actually released in 2019, so I'm not cheating quite as much this time.
He has notes and details.
That's because I'm going to forget if I don't have notes.
Sure. Well, okay, so I'll try to do this without revealing the other ones. My number 5 this year was Osprey's Wildlands. Martin Wallace, incredible designer, renowned. The reason I like this game so much is, and I've now played more Martin Wallace. I am not somebody who is a aficionado or fully versed in all of his games, but basically any Martin Wallace games I've ever played has the splayed iconography system as his hallmark, I think. But this Wildlands was the first game where I felt like it wasn't just attached to a game that I had played in a way that I had I don't know, for me, of all the ones that I've played of his, this was the one where I just loved how you were, so basically it's a giant, it's like a miniature combat game, but like with a fixed game set. You know, it's not a collectibles, but you have a large dungeon area, or you flip it over and it's outdoors, and you're moving heroes, and everyone's their own squad. But basically, his use of the action cards and those iconographies to decide what can happen, how you can defend, and just the math behind it really created a lot of really dynamic and interesting moments in combat. There's also like sort of looking to find crystals versus killing people, and there's a nice sort of crystal currency mechanic. That currency is not the right word, but victory point multi-approach way of doing it that really worked for me. And minis are nice. I really like the look of the game. Box is fantastic. So double layered, you know.
Those are nice.
Oh yeah, super great. And I just this of all his games, that's not even fair. Of like the 4 I've played, this one stood out to me as the one I enjoyed the most, and was like, I'll teach this to people to play.
Well, like you said, I mean, if I see Martin Wallace on the box, I'll at least check it out. I won't have any problem sitting down to play it, and that one I haven't checked out yet.
Oh, geez, man. Okay.
So after this, I might actually need to borrow it.
Yeah, well, you tend to. Okay, so what's next on yours?
My number 5 is actually one I don't own. I'm going to own it, and that is Space Base. I was visiting some friends up in Seattle.
Up in space?
Yeah, and I saw a number of game designers up there, and they said, you have to check this out. You have to check this out. Have you played it?
I've never even heard of it.
Okay, Space Base. It's a great game. It's kind of like Machi Koro on steroids. Okay. And that it's got the same kind of, you roll dice, and then everyone gets stuff. Oh, but what stuff you're getting...
Catan.
But what you're getting is based on kind of how you are drafting and kind of building up a little tableau engine builder of spaceships in your fleet to collect energy and kind of build your own little economy and things. It's the theme is pretty thin, but the mechanics are really compelling. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, and cool. I look forward to seeing the box art, and maybe it'll jog my memory. As an aside, when you said that, it's not really on the list, but one of the biggest disappointments of the year for me, I haven't even finished it yet, is Machi Koro Legacy, man.
Oh, I haven't had a chance to get it. That's a bummer.
Well, it's just like, you know what? Playing 12 games of Machi Koro, you can't toss it in a mechanic here and a mechanic here does not make that sustainable. It's just dreadful. And that's not fair. It's sort of like, you know what? It's perfect. They did exactly what you did. Well, you just like... the narrative's like super tacked on. And it's like in like mechanics too, but it's just not like, oh, they came to your town. Like, it's just not gripping. And so you just end up like, it's just like, it's like playing Machi Koro with your friends 12 days in a row. It's like, man, we should play a different game. Whereas like Charterstone, Pandemic Legacy, like other Legacy games, you don't have that, but this one is just like, and I like the friends too. But anyway.
I have complex thoughts about Legacy games, and why I think it's hard sometimes for companies to put out good Legacy games because people don't really know what they want from Legacy games. But that's a separate video we can do sometime.
Some other time. All right.
Some other time.
Moving on, and I'm just want to make sure I get this in the right order. Number 4, is in your stack.
Oh, yep. You asked if I had it here.
You did.
It's in mine as well.
You introduced this to me. This is Vi.
Yeah, that's on that same Seattle trip. I picked that up at the store saying, oh, the art looks really pretty, and I end up loving it, and I was the one pushing that on people, including you.
Yeah, the card game of capture and control. And actually, I don't know much about, who are these guys? They have a company name? Sand Hat Games. But to me, this fits in the exact same category, albeit a little bigger, as Blessed Dark and Mephisto, right? It's a card game with absolutely stunning art that has a simple and interesting mechanic. Look at these things. That plays out really well, and essentially, and it's it's the kind of designer game when you like lay out all the cards, you're like, they started with a deck of cards.
Yeah.
But basically, you're laying out cards and trying to make sets, or
capturing territory,
and then you do it by like connecting like cards. Like if I had 3-3-3-3, but then you can use like face cards to sort of take over diagonally and do different area control.
Yeah, and I found even just that base game is really compelling and fun. I've probably played that the most. But I think the thing that really pushes Vi over the top for me is that it comes with a ton of little options you can drop into the game. And by that, it may be just one additional card or 2 additional cards that completely changes up the game. And there are, 6 or 7 different ones in there? Yeah. And you can drop in any mix of them to really create a lot of different games. And adjust for whatever flavor or difficulty level you want.
And actually, I think, maybe this is for another video, but this is a fantastic example of having a compelling base game mechanic that works, is fun, and then, as you said, layering in just cards that do slight different rule sets that take a great mechanic and just make it more interesting and fun and engaging. So, super happy to have played this, and
now I'm taking it home with me. You've had it long enough.
Well, I did have it for a long time. I had that almost for a year. That was me. You.
All right. Well, that was actually going to be my number 2.
Oh.
So we can just skip. I'll slide it around. Go right ahead. Go to your next one.
I'll get 2 in a row. That's right. So that was my number. So that 5, 4. This is 3. So cartographers. Per your truth in advertising. So Keith Mateka is a absolute close friend of mine, but also somebody I've worked with at length. Skulk Hollow, Herbaceous, Sunset Over Water, Herbaceous Sprouts, the Whatnot cabinet. He did the solo design for all of those, and for Skulk Hollow, obviously the design.
And I did a little bit of writing for Skulk Hollow, and via that I actually met Keith and actually did just like 12 sentences of writing for Cartographer.
Oh, really?
So yeah,
your name's in here somewhere.
So
and then for what it's worth, I gave him feedback on his box art.
Full disclosure, all that is true, and yet it's still an incredible game that I want to talk about more. So.
Yeah, and for me, so getting to the actual game, what works really well is this is a flip and draw or whatever, but it's a 1 to 100 roll and write game. The roll and write genre, but this is flip and draw on a map.
Yeah.
But basically, what Keith does super well, and was to deliver it here, is he takes rich high fantasy type of vibe, and he translates it into a really compelling and fun gameplay mechanic, and he nailed a fantasy. That's the part that is just awesome. And I remember when he told me about it the first time before I'd ever played it, and he's like, "Oh, so it's like this game, and what you're doing is you're drawing a fantasy map." And I was just like, "If you deliver me drawing a fantasy map, playing a game, you won."
Yep.
And he did, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, and I see people passing around like, this is the result of the game. This is the map I drew, and making beautiful little colored maps so that that's...
And so it looks pretty plain, but you're filling it in. The things you're filling it in are like little mountains and trees and...
I think on his on the Facebook page for Thunderworks, you can see some of the beautiful maps people are making as they play the game. Yeah. It's worth checking out.
So, and here's a couple that I was like, where are some of the ones we did?
Or you can just do a little scribble art like I tend to do when I play. But
but I actually saw somebody who made like placeable pieces in like 3D. Wow. But awesome. It just what a delight, and really appreciate it. And I think this sort of showed that you could take the genre and push it a little bit out of just like simple roll and write. But I really enjoyed this game, and that's why it's on my list.
So one of my favorite types of games are detective games.
They are.
I grew up playing Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective and 221B Baker Street. And a couple years ago, we were both really excited about Chronicles of Crime. And one of my favorite games from last year was a kind of detective and puzzle-solving game. That's all prelude to say how much I loved it, because I was kind of hesitant to mention it on the list because I don't think you can actually get it anymore. It may have only been available via Kickstarter, but it is the Wilson Wolf Affair. And you can see it is in this plain, almost unlabeled box.
Was this the cartoon one?
So yes, it is actually what you get when you get this game is it's like you are sent the archives of a 1930s British animation.
Is this like one of those games they made this and like promptly went out of business?
No, they're still around as far as I can tell. I was actually looking earlier because I was trying to verify, like, could you buy this? And there might be a few copies floating around if you can get in touch with them. But what's great about it is, so you open it up, and there's a ton of stuff inside. And I actually haven't finished playing it yet, but and one of the things you find is a diary. And this is a diary from someone who worked at the company. And as you start reading through it, you find out that he was starting to get concerned that maybe there were hidden messages in the cartoons. And the company that made it is Simulacra Games, and if you go to their YouTube channel, you can actually watch some of those cartoons, and you come to realize that, yeah, you think he's right, that actually there is hidden messages in there. And then the real question, and I can say that without giving away any spoilers, is figuring out who's doing it, what are the messages, and why is it going on? And doing all of that is just so much fun. And they did such great things. You're pulling out some of the awesome stuff in here, and literally the box just keeps going on and on. There are patches in here. There are photographs. There's there are animation posters, and there's a little zoetrope cartoon thing you can build. And there are just puzzles and fun little pieces of information in there everywhere. And my wife and I spent, I bet, probably 3 weeks playing this and talking about it, and still haven't quite figured it out. But it's full of amazing little moments. Like, it was an honest conversation at one point. We were like, should we burn that? Like, no. Maybe we should put it in the freezer instead. And you just, it's not just a like, oh, I'm going to sit there and do a crossword puzzle and find a hidden word. There is really, really clever stuff built into this, and it's one of the most unique experiences I had playing it. And like I said, I know I haven't finished it, and now that I'm talking about it, I'm really kind of excited to dig back in and figure out more of the story.
And like, clearly an absolute amazing labor of love.
Yeah, the team behind it started out as puzzle fans and graphic artists, and I think they knew kind of what was available to them in terms of cool tools to make things, and they really used all their skills and made something really special. So, that said, if you're looking for something that I found equally fun, that's a great detective game from last year, I think Detective Modern Crime is also a great...
And they had a Kickstarter for an expansion, right?
Yes, I believe so.
Cool. I actually haven't played that one, nor Wilson Wolf's...
Well, as far as I can tell so far,
Fair.
For the most part, other than some of the things you have to build in Wilson Wolf, it's non-destructive. So maybe I can pass it on to you once I'm done playing.
I mean, we play all those exit rooms and all that stuff. We went to Hawaii. We even did an exit room in Hawaii.
Nice.
We brought like a whole set of them. Cool. It wasn't as expensive as that. So my number 2 this year for me was Century Golem Edition. This is in the like, oh, are you just going to pick up Azul? Or are you going to just pick up Splendor? This is sort of mass market, massive hit game. But nevertheless, still fantastic. I really enjoyed it. And in particular for me, the Golem edition, the aesthetic of this, I love it. Also, and I did a video talking about packaging or something, but I will just say it again. One, being in a situation where the rules are literally on one piece of paper is pretty awesome all in. But such amazing design for the insert. In particular, that they did this concave, or convex, concave? Convex cover here that actually makes the rules lay flat in the box and
it makes the gems feel very gemmy.
Yeah, just so nice. But this is a deck builder,
engine builder,
engine deck hand builder type of game. Really super simple. You're just playing cards from your hand and then picking them up and playing them and picking them up, and you use them to get gems, and gems to get cards, and cards to get more cards, and then you get victory points. Mm-hmm. But it works a little long. We play a reduced card version just to get a little bit faster. And that was my number 2 from this year.
I'm on my number 3 because I'm still catching up. My copy is upside down. My copy is unopened because everyone I know seems to have a copy, so I've been playing theirs, and that is Bosque. Beautiful little game. But what I love about it is, for those who don't know, it is a game where you play trees, and you're in a forest, and you play through the year. So you start out in spring, proceed through summer, fall, winter, and each season is its own little mini game, which is a cool idea. But then the results of the mini games start to kind of impact each other and interact, and it's really simple to catch on to, but it really adds up into something great and has an incredible table presence. It's really beautiful, where you have trees on a great board and leaves that flow across the board. It's really nice.
Super pretty. I saw this out, but I have not played it myself.
Well, we'll play it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And if I think maybe I don't know if we've done it yet, but maybe we did. At some point, I wanted to do a like shelf thing, but like going to your place. So Seth has like a library style wall that's just like packed with games, and it's always a pleasure to see what he's got in store there. So, my top game from 2019 which again I reviewed because there's some other games I didn't, but that's how I do these. I actually don't have a copy because this was another game that played with some folks and then just gave it to them because as much as I loved it, they loved it as well. But it was Catan, Rise of Incas, which for me, I play Catan a lot. There have been a lot of different versions. It basically is Catan plus Small World. They basically have Catan, but where you have rolling civilizations where you start, and then at some point you basically ascend to the next, and then your old ones get covered in brambles, and you start your new one. So it really created a really nice sense of narrative and progression in what's otherwise sort of a flat game. Like Catan's not that flat, but like it just it made the stages of the game feel stronger and gave opportunities for other mechanics. I also thought in terms of the extra resources and how they adjusted some of the minor rules, which I think for Catan they've done in a couple of different editions, just made everything better. Like it's just Catan's a fantastic game, and if I had a choice, I would always choose that version over, maybe not for teaching a new player, but setting that aside. It was just great, and I really enjoyed playing it again and again. We had so much fun. There are potatoes in the game, and I had a lot of potatoes, and those friends got me a potato shirt. But no, and the quality of the components were great. The brambles were great. Like it's just, if you're done with Catan, I hear you. I thought this was really a really well worth checking out version.
Kind of worth a revisit.
Yeah.
Nice. That's somewhat similar experience for me in the sense that something I've been playing forever is Star Wars games. And there are a lot of Star Wars games I like. In fact, I like most of them, but none of them have really quite clicked for me. I've played X-Wing. I've played the miniatures games. I played Imperial Assault. I played Rebellion. And they always seemed like they were either, too focused on a battle, like X-Wing or miniatures games, or in the case of Rebellion, the scope was almost too big, where it almost felt like kind of abstract war game, and I couldn't quite get it on the nitty-gritty like I wanted to. And then finally this year, they came out with the Star Wars game I've been waiting for. I played it for the first time down at Dice Tower Con down in Texas, and came back and bought it the next day. And I haven't had a chance to play it again yet, which again is why it's still in plastic, but it's Star Wars Outer Rim. Fantastic game. It is slightly abstracted in the sense that it covers the outer rim of the Star Wars galaxy, so there are a lot of planets involved. But each player takes on the role of a particular scoundrel or character in the Star Wars universe. You might be Boba Fett, you could be Han Solo. I played Dr. Aphra, who is kind of the roguish archaeologist from the Star Wars comics. Fantastic. And what I love about it is it has that scope of the entire Outer Rim, and yet it really felt like I was playing not just a adventure, but a series of adventures with my character, and our stories were interlocking and things like that. It was a lot of fun. I went and another player was playing the bounty hunter Bosk, and I actually managed to get a hold of Bosk's ship and took it and was flying it around the Outer Rim, engaging in all kinds of skullduggery, and it's a really wonderful, evocative game that really catches what I wanted to play about Star Wars.
Cool. Very cool. A good cast of characters here.
Yeah.
Too. Very broad.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, so, I think that's 2019.
That is. Yeah.
Fantastic. I don't know. I mean, it was a lot of good year of gaming. It's just...
There's a lot coming up. I mean, just looking what we're only 2 weeks into January, and already Kickstarter is exploding, and
for sure,
there's stuff that I backed last year that's still coming in, and there's piles of stuff arriving in the stores every week. So, it's been so busy. But anyway, it's a good time to play games.
It is a wonderful time to play games. So, and even like today, Riot Games, just like random thing, they were like, yeah, you know that one game we made, Mechs vs. Minions? We're starting our tabletop group. We're going to make a ton of them because we want to. And here's and that first game we did was big and huge and amazing. And now we're just going to make a card game. But we'll see how that card game goes. But anyway, so thanks for watching. Hopefully, these are always an interesting set. Maybe not the games, maybe with the exception of Century or maybe Wildlands that you were expecting to see in here. But hopefully they were still interesting. And maybe I'll get the 2021 out in 2020 this year. Okay. Talk
See
to
you guys later. Bye.
Hey everybody, Edo here, and thanks for watching Gaming with Edo. Reviews over here on this playlist, League and Insider videos over here on this one. Subscribe, share, all that good stuff. But most importantly, play some great games. Thanks.